The interpretation of narratives is to some extent subjective because everyone can experience art differently. At the same time, using literary analysis, we can still explain the most reasonable meanings that the artist meant to convey or that the audience is likely to understand. To understand themes of any work of art, however, spoilers are involved. Heavy spoilers. So consider this your spoiler warning. Enderlilies, Quietus of the Knights, the dark fantasy Metroidvania by Livewire and Aglobe, is a game that uses significant amounts of Christian imagery to tell its story. The protagonist, Lily, is a white priestess who plays a pivotal role in the final days of the Kingdom of Land's End, a kingdom suffering from a cataclysmic pestilence. Elements such as prayer, cathedrals, and nuns all serve to highlight the religious nature of the narrative. But do the similarities to Christianity end there? Or are there even more biblical themes? In this video, we are going to explore these ideas and answer the question, in bringing Quietus to the Knights, is the Priestess of the End like the Christ? The first theme for today's video is that of Lily being a priest that saves through purification. The blight is a magical disease that affects the mind and soul by taking away consciousness while at the same time making the body undying. The Kingdom of Land's End was often attacked by the blighted, enemies of the kingdom that were essentially zombified undead that were incapable of being defeated due to their undying bodies. In the end, it was the white priestesses who were able to save the kingdom by purifying the blighted invaders, stopping the blighted. As the years went on, different generations of the white priestesses purified more and more invaders, slowly winning the war in this manner. Thus, one way that the white priestesses saved the kingdom was by preventing the enemies from being undying. But the other aspect, arguably the more important one, is that the blight is contagious, and eventually many of the citizens of the kingdom were also infected with the blight. Only the power of purification possessed by the white priestesses can save the blighted from eternal suffering, a more personal salvation for those of Land's End suffering from the torment of the blight. This theme of purification is emphasized through the symbolism of lilies, which are flowers that represent purity and innocence at death. The title then refers to our protagonist, Lily, who brings purification and death to the infected undead. In the book of Hebrews, the Christ is also described as a priest that purifies. But when Christ appeared as a high priest of the good things that have come, then through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, he entered once for all into the holy places, not by means of the blood of goats and calves, but by means of his own blood, thus securing an eternal redemption. For if the blood of goats and bulls and the sprinkling of defiled persons with the ashes of a heifer sanctify for the purification of the flesh, how much more will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to God, purify our conscience from dead works to serve the living God? Indeed, under the law, almost everything is purified with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. Hebrews chapter 9, verses 11 to 14 and verse 22. Just like Jesus the high priest saves believers by purifying them from the defilement of sin through the power of his own blood, so Lily, too, saves Land's End by purifying the blight. But like the purification Jesus brings, this purification has a heavy cost, one that some were unwilling to pay, which leads us to our second theme. A second theme of Ender Lilies is that of the selfless priest willing to suffer for others. One way the narrative develops this theme is by highlighting the selfishness of some of the characters. The King of Land's End selfishly sacrificed the White Priestess and the Knights to win his wars and to discover immortality. Knight Captain Julius selfishly kills the king, not because of the king's wickedness in doing the evil just mentioned, but because all he wanted was his father to acknowledge him. In contrast, the White Priestesses are selfless. They purify and save by taking on the effects of the blight on behalf of those they purify. While this doesn't drive them mad, it does cause pain and suffering. Fresha, the priestess of the fount, accumulates a lot of this pain and suffering when she purifies most of the land, and especially the Blight Lord. The amount of pain and suffering causes her eventually to feel isolated and even a little self-pitying as she continues to selflessly serve her people. However, the extent of the suffering caused by the purification is enough to cause many to waver. The umbral knight, Lily's main companion on her journey, wants Lily to abandon her role to save her own life instead of take on and bear the blight. Similarly, Fresha too encourages Lily to live her own life. In fact, ending A is Lily leaving Land's End after being purified by Fresha, abandoning Land's End and Fresha to their own devices. In the Bible, Peter too wanted Jesus to give up bearing the suffering of the sinners, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." And calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, "If any would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it." Mark chapter 8, verses 31 to 35. However, ending A, the one where the umbral knight and Fresha convince Lily to run away, is considered the worst ending. And like Jesus, Lily rejects this running away, choosing to continue down the path of selfless suffering. In ending B and C, Lily enters the abyss, where she selflessly offers to bear the blight with Fresha together. In the Bible, the great prophet Isaiah prophesies that Jesus would selflessly suffer for our sins. "Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief when his soul makes an offering for guilt. He shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgressors." Isaiah 53 verse 4 and verses 10 to 12. Like Jesus, Fresha and Lily, as white priestesses, choose to purify all willing to be purified and bear their pain. The role of the white priestesses go all the way back to the first one, all of whom suffer to purify their people, until the actions of Lily, the last priestess, who brings the system to an end, which is connected to our third theme. Our third theme for today's video is how Lily is a final priest, the priestess of the end. While this theme is not heavily developed, it is definitely there, beginning with the title of the game. The protagonist is one who purifies, who brings the defilement to an end, the enderlily. Lily is the final white priestess. She is the one who can bring an end to the blight, an end to the reign of death, which was actually caused by Fresha, an end to the system of suffering priestesses, particularly that of the priestess of the fount, Fresha. In the book of Hebrews, the Bible talks about how Christ is the final priest, bringing about the end of the sacrificial system by bearing the sins of many once and for all. Thus it was necessary for the copies of heavenly things to be purified with these rites, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Christ has entered not into holy places made with hands, which are copies of the true things, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God on our behalf. Nor was it to offer himself repeatedly, as the high priest enters the holy places every year with blood not his own, for then he would have had to suffer repeatedly since the foundation of the world. But as it is, he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment, so Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. Hebrews chapter 9, verses 23 to 28. Like Jesus, Lily's final purification of Fresha, taking on the true blighted Lord, is what ends the curse of the blight, with even Fresha acknowledging that it is finished. With her actions, Lily has brought an end to the suffering of Fresha and the knights, bringing solace and rest, which is connected to our last theme for today. Our last theme for today's video is that of the priest that brings comfort and rest. The white priestesses bring comfort and rest to many of the knights in the torment of their undying existence. Fresha, the priestess of the fount, brought comfort to Elaine's mother and to Ulf by spending time with him, chatting and enjoying flowers together. Even the umbral knight Farron discusses how Lily's companionship brings him comfort. An even more important concept than comfort is the idea of rest. This theme is developed through many motifs, such as the respite points, places of rest. Throughout the game, the need for rest is regularly emphasized. Additionally, the concept of eternal rest, resting in peace, is developed, especially in terms of the knights that protected the land. In order to fight the Blighted, the king and Phaedon created the Deathless Elixir, making many of the soldiers and knights able to fight endlessly, just like the Blighted. However, the reason this worked was because the Deathless Elixir was in part made with the Blight, containing the regenerative properties of the Blight, while allowing those who take the Deathless Elixir to maintain control for longer than the Blight would allow. In the end, though, the Deathless Elixir was also an undying, endless torment, and it is Lily that brings rest to both the Blighted and the undead knights that fight them. In other words, Lily, the priestess of the end, brings quietus to the knights. The Bible, too, talks about eternal rest, one for those who are saved by Jesus, our high priest. For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken of another day later on. So then, there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For whoever has entered God's rest has also rested from his works, as God did from his. Let us therefore strive to enter that rest, so that no one may fall by the same sort of disobedience. Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Hebrews chapter 4, verses 8 to 11 and verses 14 to 16. Not only does the book of Hebrews talk about an eternal rest, but the book of Revelation does as well. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest, day or night, these worshippers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the mark of its name. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write this, Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow them." Revelation chapter 4, verses 11 to 13. Like how Jesus brings blessing and rest in death to his followers, Lily too brings rest and comfort to the knights who needed it, and even to Fresha, the priestess of the fount. Enderlilies Quietus of the Knights was a game that, in my opinion, had many flaws. Its slow start and weak narrative development was initially very discouraging to me. Despite this, I still found myself drawn to its themes, ones of purity, selflessness, finality, and rest. While the storytelling could still use some work, the way that the themes of the game parallel Christian ideas was a pleasant surprise and generally quite satisfying. That's all I have for you in this video. Happy Easter, and bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.